plus 135.
I'm very interested in that.
I will make a compelling case when we get to that series, I promise you.
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, so welcome to the Details Podcast while James looks at the odds for tomorrow, and appropriately so, because, although it's a overcast and rainy day, we got a lot of sunshine tomorrow, James.
Yeah,
in the forecast. I haven't even looked at the schedule. I think the first game is at, 2 o'clock?
No, it's like 1:40.
No, you're kidding.
Yeah, it's like 1.
It's like full-on March Madness tomorrow.
Yes.
That's sweet. Oh my god.
Really,
playoff basketball in August, my guy. That's crazy.
It's definitely like a huge win for the consumer, no? This whole how you just line up games throughout the day and you can just hopefully you're not sitting at home able to watch every basketball game in the playoffs, but I guess it'd be nice if you are too.
Well, there's a lot of people complaining, especially, Raptor fans, because we've always had like the noon game on Saturday.
Right.
We never get the prime time. And it's like, oh, now we have the 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock game tomorrow, and people still be, I put this in parentheses, but working, right? Like, I'm like, don't tell me you're not going to pull up a stream and watch it while you're working. Like, give me a break.
It depends what you do, obviously, but...
I think a lot of people would like to be at a bar or something while they watch a game, right? So,
which is
understandably so, but we can get that conversation because Nick Nurse actually made a really good point about the advantages of having an early game. But weekend catch-up, how was your weekend?
It's pretty good. Yeah, got to see some old friends, caused a ruckus downtown a bit the past couple nights. And
What's downtown Guelph like these days?
The patio scene is cool.
Yeah? So you're really digging that?
I really like it because I'm a huge, I don't know, I like having space. I don't like being in confined rooms. Not like I'm claustrophobic or anything, but I just mean like the ability to kind of roam is nice.
Yeah.
But the whole COVID thing, everything's just tricky, Like, it's not the same. When you go dap up a buddy and they haven't seen in a while, I saw a couple football buddies I hadn't seen in a bit. I'm dabbing them up, and then I kind of realized this probably doesn't look that good on me.
Right.
But, it's just the time. I guess it's the times and all that, but... Downtown is good. They're making the best they can out of it, I think, and hopefully they're gonna keep.
It's funny. I went to this place called Pursuit OCR, and I'm a big fan of Pursuit OCR. It's like an adult playground, basically, right? Like it's jungle gyms and like a ball pit, all this, right up my alley. And they have this cool beach volleyball thing. And my best friend Dan came with me, and we were on the same side, and we're playing a little 3-on-3. And every time we would spike, we just go up and high five, and everybody's like 6 feet as a joke. They'd be screaming, but it's like it's your natural instinct to like celebrate with someone when you've done something. So you know what though? It's funny because Dan's a nurse too, and we always talk about our bubble and the 10 people in our bubble, and like he's like, you're way past 10 at this point, but he's like you live in Guelph and they've just been doing things right. Like your 10 in Guelph is like totally different from your 10 in Toronto or something like that, right?
I totally agree.
I think not to brush our shoulders or toot our horns that much, but in Guelph, I don't think anyone's taken it for granted. Shout out to Mayor Cam Guthrie and everything. 100%. They've handled this situation really, really well, 100%. Right? So
I think they've done the tremendous job on it. But I would agree with you. I've never felt worried here in Guelph. I've not, never.
Well, and even hopping back and forth to two cities, you can see
100%.
The difference in how seriously people are taking it, and how cautious they are and responsible, itself, right?
You can go pop on there for half an hour and check out every other city, and you're like, okay, this is different.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with you. So yeah, shout out to Guelph. I love that you bring up the dining thing because maybe this is a plug for like Guelph tourism, but it just sounds like a lot of people are actually coming out of the city because they've heard about this experience downtown.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not keen to go all the time, go out and all that stuff, but with the patio now I'm just like a text away to be convinced,
right?
Because it's just a good atmosphere. It's nice if it's a nice day too, within the weekend it's nice and sunny out or whatever the hell it is. Like, dude, it's that's how it should be all the time, right? I think I really do think that setup should stay.
And if anyone's listening, I think we talked about it like a couple podcasts, but just to give you a visual, right? We have a major intersection downtown where a lot of the bars and the clubs and stuff are, and they've shut down all the streets. You're not allowed to bring your car on that road, and it's just open. It's like an old European style. Like you walk through the roads. There's like the extended patios even further out. It looks like there's picnic benches. So just a good time to get food and drinks and socially do it in a socially distant manner.
Exactly.
And they're trying to make it a year-round thing, which is really cool, which I'm hearing, right?
I don't know, like if you gotta use the bathroom, you just put your mask on when you leave your table and you walk. It seems fine.
So you can go into the establishments and use the washrooms.
You're right. You can only enter rooms with a mask on, obviously.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't. It didn't feel like this was like a flawed thing for me. I was in my. I was like, listen, there's a risk coming out here. I understand that, but the process and what they're doing is, I think they're doing their best.
Right.
Which is all you can ask
Well,
for.
I also think a lot of that, and we talked about this a couple of podcasts ago too. It's like it's just a showing, you're being responsible. Because even me, like I went into a restaurant yesterday. We walked into the restaurant with masks, but then as soon as we sat down, we took it off. So it's like,
right.
Do you really have to go the extra step? But I mean, it doesn't hurt to do it, right? Like, what are you gonna lose,
one of those
right?
Things, right? And it's like we're sometimes you might be just doing it for the sake of doing it, but if at the end of the day it makes people feel safer and better, it makes us get back to normal quicker, then let's just do it.
Yeah, just gives everyone a peace of mind. So, no, great catch up. Little bit odd. I'm sure people are listening to this and they're like, oh, we're getting this podcast on a Sunday evening as opposed to our usual Monday. But we, as responsible podcasters and content creators, we thought it was important that you had a full day to listen to our NBA playoff preview before all the games tomorrow. Because I mean, even last week we talked about the Pacers Miami game to some sort of depth, and then by the time the podcast came out, the game was over. So
done, right?
I thought it would be fun, and luckily, like I said, the weather's shitty, so kind of give us a great excuse to be inside and talk about this. So let's just jump into it, because I feel like it's gonna be a long one. We have 8 different series to talk about, right? 16 teams.
Yep.
I first kind of wanted to wrap up the play-on tournament and just talk about what a great success this was for the NBA.
I mean, like, going into it, whatever your expectation was, this surpassed it. I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Whoever you are, even if you're Adam Silver, this surpassed it.
Yeah, and it's weird because I think before the tournament we said there's definitely going to be some positive tests. That's just a given at this point. But much like the NHL, these guys know positive tests. There was a couple of inconclusive ones, I think, but then they just kept testing and testing, and just ended up being negative. So credit to them. I think reading a lot of the quote unquote tea leaves, or what the media is saying, is like the league is still super, super cautious, right? They're not gloating. They're not bloating their chest. Right. They know they still have all these games to get through. And, they're super eager to get this thing down to one hotel, because I think it's 3 and now it's dwindled down to 2 because now you've got 16 teams, and they're still like, nope, like this could all end tomorrow. Like we'd still get a breakout like the MLB and, be in a situation where we have to shut this thing down.
You have to remember, man, that was the easiest part. At this point now forward, if LeBron James gets COVID in a game 5 of a series against the Clippers, bro, we got problems. Mm-hmm. So this is why now I would imagine that they're going to even put the pedal to the floor even more. Because at this point now, if you were to lose, like, anyone, LeBron's obviously the massive one, but a James Harden or, dude, like, that's not okay.
Right. Well, and especially, as we get deeper into the playoffs, I don't know if it's the first round or what round it is, but these guys are going to slowly start to be able to bring their families and friends into this. And we saw what the Seahawks player did, try to sneak in a girl in. I don't know if you know the story. I don't even know his name, but he got cut by the team. He tried to disguise a girl as a football player. You can't imagine what that looks like, a 5'6", 5'7" girl just rolling up, I can't imagine she's built as a football player, but that must have been pretty obvious. But I think the NFL, not the NFL, the NBA is probably better with that, especially with the whole Lou Williams situation as well, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. This is muddy waters to me. This is muddy waters to me, but I get it. I totally understand. I imagine if you were locked up in this kind of situation for a while, you would definitely feel the need to do something drastic like that. But yeah, I mean, you got to be smarter, no? We could have had. There's a better way to do it, I would imagine. Trying to fake a football player, that's not it.
No, that's definitely not it.
I liked how Adam Silver
hire her as a staff member or something. Tell her bring room service. Man. I don't know. I don't care what it is, but
that's not even trying.
You're just being lazy.
You're not even trying. You knew that wasn't going to work out.
No, exactly. No, kudos to the NBA. They did a phenomenal job, and I think we'll talk about players and Adam Silver, but we won't talk about the staff behind the scenes that have, I'm sure, worked meticulously to every detail to make sure that everything 100%. Fell in line. So, pat on the back for them. And it's crazy because, like, you think about the no travel. I think you really saw the teams that really relied on the home court advantage affected, whether it's Philly, the Lakers, stuff like that. Unfortunately, Philly, fall to victim of an injury as well, but level playing field. These guys have had the same amount of rest, and like, knock on wood, there hasn't been any like severe injuries at this point. I think Hayes and Simmons are probably the big ones at this point.
Westbrook too with that quad,
right? And we're definitely gonna get to that at some point. I want to start this podcast with the Raptors, because I feel like some people will listen to the Raptors portion and be like, we don't know the rest of the NBA. So I think it's only fair, but. What a year for the Raptors, highest winning percentage in team history. Now, I laugh at that because it is a shortened season. So, people want to boast about the fact that, if you told us last year that we wouldn't have Kawhi this year and have a better win percentage or the best one in history, nobody would have believed you. But, I mean, you got to acknowledge that they were able to do that, right? Yeah, I mean, during the course of the season, the bubble kind of changed things, but, top 3 in efficiency, whether it was offense and defense. Just a successful campaign for the Raptors overall.
And yeah, I think even going on top of that, going into this playoff, you would say that they are the best defensive team now as opposed to the Bucks. I don't think the Bucks are at that level at where they were. So I would say the Toronto has, dude, and you're walking into the playoffs with the best defense on paper. That's real good. That's a very comfortable place to be in. And I would say the most depth. I would say best defense and most depth in this playoff bracket.
Yeah,
which is
now the one concerning thing, and I mean we could talk about this now into the Brooklyn Raptors series, but they had the 20th ranked offense in the bubble, so we did see a drop off in the bubble. Now, I mean they didn't have their full rosters for all 8 games. Were they experimenting a lot, right? Because maybe Nick Nurse used that opportunity, and then turnovers were a massive issue for them as well, right? I think top 5, in turnovers given game. So if they want to be successful, they're gonna have to really protect the rock, especially when they get deeper, against the Bucks, the Celtics, whoever it may be. So definitely things you want to want to fix. They were 6th in 3-point percentage as well. So what's your immediate analysis on a Raptors Brooklyn series?
My immediate analysis is, I know we always want to take a side. This is amazing, or maybe we're a little worried, or you're in the best place right now. As a team, as a franchise, as everything. Out of all these 16 teams, the Raptors have no reason to be worried about anything, no reason to get overexcited about anything. They're the reigning champions. This is your championship. Keep your circle tight. Roll with your guys. Use your depth. Trust in your coach. Trust in each other. The fact that shooting wasn't that good is like the best bad thing that you could possibly have, man. Like shots fall, That's not what people worry about. It's like, oh, we shot a little shitty percentage for 8 games. Okay. That's cool. Defensively, you're the best. That's going to be your anchor for every series, right? That's kind of what it has always looked anyways.
Well, and you look at all the teams that have won in the past, right? Big defensive stops at the end.
100%.
Even like you talk about the Warriors, right? You don't want to talk about their defense because their offense is so great, but we've talked about how historically great those defenses were when they got to the finals, right?
That's exactly it. And I think the actual idea of the Nets being somewhat of a decent team right now is a beneficiary of the Raptors, so that you can roll your guys 10 deep and play hard basketball now from the get-go. You don't because on the East, man, it's tough. You walk in with the Bucks in a regular season after coming off of 62 wins or whatever, and you got Giannis, and you got to go play Orlando. I mean, even now, it's already probably still boring for them. But if they were in and still rolling, Giannis would be like, all right, like, can I get 54 times and let's get out of here? Like, this is irrelevant to all of them. You have meaningful games right out the gate. That's huge. Especially now with this chemistry and the time crunch and all that as well. And being that depth, man.
Yeah. No, obviously the Nets are coming off a really impressive performance against the Trailblazers, right? And, LeVert was one of the standouts.
I always like LeVert.
Yeah, he was a second all-team in the bubble, right? They announced the all-teams and, averaged 26.6 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 6.6 assists, and close to 50% from the field. So he really had, I think it was a great showcase for him.
I agree.
And to show that, this guy could be a third fiddle on a Nets team. Although I think this is a great conversation too. For me personally, and David Thorpe made a great point because I was listening to him with Zach Lowe on. He's from True Hoops, and he's saying for him to be successful on this Nets team, he's going to have to be the Ginobili. He's going to have to come off the bench because he does need the ball in his hands.
Exactly.
And with the KD and Kyrie, he's not going to be able to score the best way he does. And he shoots 33% from the 3. And that's not going to be good for you when KD and Kyrie are looking for shooters, right? Because you have to surround those guys with Joe Harrises of the world.
If there's anything that anyone can learn out of that run where LeBron went back to Cleveland and went off for 5 years or whatever that was, is that Kyrie Irving at his best, and you'll get the best out of him if you completely only have one ball handler, and that's him.
Yeah.
Like if you're the Brooklyn Nets, dude, Kate, this is... The narrative around this team bugs me a lot because they're talking about like a third guy. They need a third guy. We're all forgetting about the Slim Reaper dude. That 7-foot motherfucker that doesn't give a shit about anything. He's better than everybody still. Like if he comes back healthy, he's the best. You just need another big man that can help and coexist with Kyrie, so that when he goes off the floor, Kyrie can run it.
DeAndre Jordan is not a guy for you.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, they made an interesting point. Like, do you, now that, you know, LeVert's trade value is so high, like, is a guy like Gobert, who's going to be a free agent in the future, a potential centerpiece that you look for, right?
I have a fun one for you here, and let's get a little crazy. Why don't we?
Yeah, we're all here about crazy times.
If you're Elton Brand of the Philadelphia 76ers sitting at your desk, and let's say I'm the GM of the Brooklyn Nets, and I call you up and I say, I pick Jared Allen and Karis LeVert for Joel Embiid.
I don't think Joel Embiid wants it, but it's definitely enticing.
A Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Brooklyn Nets.
You're not stopping that.
That wins, I think, instantly.
That's stupid. Like that. The idea of Kyrie and Durant is already kind of scary and stupid. You add Joel Embiid, who's like the best guy since like Shaq in his prime. Like, yeah, you're talking about like that's you could put anyone on that team. Anyone around them, right? You could put us around there. We'd be we'll give them a 68 games a win a year, right? So,
but nonetheless, on the point of the team right now, Karis LeVert is a very good basketball player. I don't see him being in the plans in the future. Although, if there's stupid management, they probably will have him and probably keep him. He's not going to coexist with Kyrie, and you're not going to get the best out of both of them. You can have good qualities out of both pieces, but you're not going to get the best out of both of them, is my point. And same with Dinwiddie, which is why he'll have to move as well.
Right.
I would imagine.
Exactly. I think for this series, I don't want to beat too much on this one because I think it's pretty simple, right? Yeah. Like, you know, besides LeVert, Harris, Johnson, Allen, you can't really name any other net, right? And the Raptors have already proven their depth. And I don't want to insult the Nets by saying this, but like, our bench could almost compete with those guys. Like, and I don't want to take credit away from those four guys. No. But after that, it's a massive drop off, and then the Raptors are just going to be able to stomp all over these guys, right? Especially if you have Serge coming off the bench, Van Fleet over. Like, they're just gonna have at it. I think it's for them, it's going to be coming out and just making that statement, right? Like, get rid of that game one woes that we always run into. You have no excuse, right? You're not on the road, you're not at home, you're even playing field. Come out swinging. And the other thing I really want to see, and the other thing I wanted to point out was like we really have to keep Jared Allen off the offensive boards, because that's one thing that I learned through the course of these 8 games. Like, that guy definitely. But we also have one of who you could argue was the best defensive player in the bubble in Marc Gasol, right? Like, if you look at the numbers statistically, right? Like, nobody's getting anything in the paint. So, you know, there's assurance there, and you're feeling a level of confidence with him in the middle.
You're making a point that I was going to get to, and I think the Nets steal a game. I don't think it's a sweep. The Raptors are the best. Like, it's not even debatable. But I don't like the idea of like assuming sweeps. It's almost good to lose one, you know? Just make sure you know what it's like. Like, fucking, you know, you don't want to win 8 games in a row and just think you can keep showing up and walking over teams.
Right.
But defensively, the Nets haven't faced anyone like this. And we're talking about Karis LeVert getting 50 points or whatever against Portland, right? One of the worst defenses. Or maybe they're doing a productive job against Dallas, worst defense. Like, they haven't faced this, you know?
They haven't faced a defense like this. No, I totally right. Because everybody was really high on LeVert, and I mean, they were just a shot away from disappointing Portland and their postseason hopes, right? But that was also a Portland team where you could just walk down the middle and kind of do whatever you want to do, right?
They're not
his mid-range game is that where he excels, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just you just got listen. Like, on paper, I can say whatever, but the fact that the Raptors are the team where you got to bring a lunch pail to, you know what I mean? And I suppose like our football team at Guelph was like this a couple of times, and you have to like kind of know that role. You're not the best skill wise, but you can beat anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of squad they are.
Right.
It's like, listen, you have 7 games to try and beat us, and that's going to be fucking real hard because we play hard defense. And it's just going to get annoying and frustrating, and a lot of things are not going to go your way. Right.
And especially like the team like the Raptors, right? They're so athletic. They're so long. Their arms are all over the place. Like, anytime they get in the post, you don't know where a hand is coming from, right?
Frustration. And then you have to also add on the fact, too, that these players also, as a young team on the Nets, are going to be facing a coach that is so strategically advanced. That, like, just on a different level than every other guy.
Yeah.
Again,
like Jacques Vaughn was definitely a candidate for Coach of the Year in the bubble, right?
For sure. But now seeing like Nick Nurse now, and you're like used to face like shitty sag off defense from the Portland Trailblazers that you just faced the other night, and now you got Nick Nurse coming out in a 1-2-1-1, and it turns into a 3-2, and a full
janky defense, right? Boxing one.
What is happening, man? Like, it's gonna be different.
Absolutely. The one other thing here, and I don't again just the last little note here is I would like to see Pascal Siakam like he was during the regular season. Kind of quiet during the bubble games. I think he was really exposed in the Celtics game, especially. Kind of disappeared compared to Tatum. So I think I'd like to see him establish himself as, quote unquote, the guy. All right, he's not going to be Kawhi Leonard, right? You can't replace that. But I think we need to see the all-star that we had in February.
I agree with you, but I'm going to hit you from the other side of it. So I watched him play twice now, and I mentioned this to you last time.
You did.
I wasn't worried, but I was just like, this looks a little. He seems like he's forcing it.
Okay.
Maybe he feels like he needs to be the Kawhi.
Okay.
And now this is my time. You know, we're in the bubble here. Everyone else is getting all these cool highlights on Twitter. Let me get up here and get a 40-point night. He's gonna let the game come to him, man. I think.
Right.
And that Raptor team, like, I don't know. Most times when you see them play really well, you don't think about a performance of one guy. Like, even though Fred had 34 the other night, like, that's
the story was about Kyle game 1, and then Fred, but then after that, it was kind of a drop off, right? Until the last 2, Stanley Johnson was a standout guy, but it's because we played nobody.
And the stories usually come from like late, or like a couple plays that the guys do late. But when you watch a Raptor game, and then you look at the scoreboard, like, it's a very non-congruent thing, I think.
Yeah.
Like
there's no consistency, right? No,
you watch a game and then Fred VanVleet had 34, but you'll watch and be like, yeah, he was important, but not any more so than the other 4 guys. Like, they were also integral, you know?
Right. It's like when you're looking at a Portland box score, you know you're gonna get either a 40 or a 40 from Dame and like a 23, 25 from CJ. You look at a Utah box score, you know you're getting your 25 from Donovan Mitchell. You know, with the Raptors box score, it's so much fun because you don't know who's gonna stand out on there, right? And what numbers are gonna stand out.
I think Pascal might have that, you know, onus or that feeling of pressure to be that guy, where what makes them dangerous is they don't really have one. That's kind of nice,
right?
And that's an old thing that used to work back in the day in sports when teams didn't have 3 superstars,
right?
But what the difference is now, as opposed this roster comparative to any other roster without as many superstars, is that this defense is at a superstar level. So this is a completely different blueprint, right? This is the Houston Astros winning the World Series before they cheated.
Okay, I'm glad you prefaced it. You said before they cheated.
Because what they did was they did it very old school. They did farm system. They got guys, and they worked for 5 years. They signed guys. They picked up dudes in free agency, and then produced a championship. And this Raptors team is kind of again, after coming off that year of signing Kawhi, right? But now having no one, they're kind of regrouping this blueprint here, giving everybody a little hope.
So we say Raptors in 4 or 5. We don't want to jump the gun and say 4, obviously.
I would even say 5-6. I think the Nets will get one. The Nets have always got one against the Raptors. That's always been a thing, for as long as I can recall. Yeah, 1 or 2 games for sure.
Well, against the Magic, you know, we got that. They got that first game. Magic got against us. Everyone's hitting the panic button, and then they swept clear right through the floor. That's the thing that bothers me
so much is the panic button. Especially with this Raptors team. You have experience, defense, and best coaching.
Yeah.
Patience is on our side.
I just think it was the same old song, right? It was like Kyle didn't show up, right? The guys that needed to show up didn't show up, and then it's just like we play all year for, you know, the best record in the East to get that home court advantage, and then you just blow game 1. I think that's why it is, right?
Yep.
And I mean, everybody wants something to talk about, right? Of course. I'm sure, you know, going back in the archives, we weren't panicking at all.
No, definitely not.
I mean, you weren't in the city. You were fighting fires at the time, so you wouldn't have known any better. But I know that I wasn't personally worried.
Right.
So I've kind of ranked what I think is the most interesting to the least interesting. So if we follow that suit, okay. I mean, you might agree with me or disagree with me.
So you're saying Bucks Magic first talk up
here?
So
let's get that out of the way, right? I want a stopwatch for when we talk about that series.
I think 4 games. No?
You just want to get it 4 games. I think. Oh my God, I can't believe we're leading with this. But for me, it's the Bucks haven't played motivated. They hadn't had a meaningful game. So that's why, you know, everyone's like wants to poke at the holes. And there are definitely some flaws with the Bucks going into the playoffs here, but they haven't played a meaningful game. And I think they're going to come out just blazing. And I think they're just going to have something to prove and put everyone out, and everyone will be like, that's the Bucks team that we remember. That's why Giannis is MVP of the season.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a fun... the only thing that's actually cool about this is I like Vucevic.
Yeah.
And that's a fun little matchup between those two. I think if you're scrolling by on TV, maybe thrown on a couple times, but the Magic franchise itself, they're just not in a good place, right?
No.
They're a product of the Eastern Conference being atrocious, and they're in.
Right.
They don't think they should be in, probably. They don't even really want to probably be in, you know, but Aaron Gordon's got to go somewhere. They should move some guys around, I really think, because they have a ton of young pieces that a lot of people would give up for, where a smart GM could make a huge turn on that. And it's a great franchise. I mean, why would that not be a market that you want to go to? It's very confusing, right?
It's a shame that Hayes is not in this series, because I think his length would have presented an interesting problem for Giannis. At the end of the day, like, I mean, he would have overcome it, but I think it would have been a fun matchup.
And Obama just left too, no?
Right, he left as well.
Which is kind of discerning.
Yeah, in his 2nd year in the league?
Yeah, and he's a nice little prospect, but someone that you would need for a Bucks matchup.
Well, and I mean, the experience of playing playoff basketball is invaluable, right? Like, you would hope that he would take advantage of that. So, yeah, it's a shame. All right, I think I clocked that in like 1 minute. So, Bucks will get the brooms. Okay, so the one I'm looking forward to the most, and the one that we were talking right before this, is I think the Thunder Rockets is the one that's most appealing for me. I love this matchup because, so I've made some notes here, and then you can give me your 2 cents. But this is a real contrast of two different teams, all right? So you have the Thunder that love the mid-range, and then you have the Rockets who refuse to take twos, right? Yep. OKC doesn't turn over the ball. They're 6th in the league. Houston forces a lot of turnovers, third in steals in the league. OKC doesn't foul, and Harden obviously relies on getting to the line, so that'll be interesting. And then it's just basically a matchup of slow versus fast, right? So it's whatever team is able to dictate the pace, I think will ultimately come out on this. And OKC is the best at defending the fast breaks. So, and then we've talked about the fact that Russell will be missing, we don't know how many games. It is a quad injury, so for him that is significant given his style of play. And then I obviously have some notes on some matches that we can talk about. What is your immediate when you glance at this matchup takeaway?
Man, it's an interesting one because there's a part of me for some real reason that really wants to get behind this Houston team. Like I
and it's so funny because I think at the beginning of the year we're like, we're not into this.
No, so not into it, right?
Yeah.
But there's just a part of me that just thinks, and I'm just thinking about Moneyball, you know, and I'm just thinking, you shoot 50% from three. Like if Houston does that, they win the championship. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is such a stupid generic thing to say, but it's almost true. Yeah. If they do that for the next 2 months, they win an NBA championship. Mm-hmm. So can they? Maybe. Fuck, I don't know. Yeah. I think if you don't have Russell Westbrook, and if you don't have Russell Westbrook at his peak, because you also have to understand with a guy like him, any injury or minor injury to his quad, when LeBron gets a tweak in his ankle, he can slow play and add a different element to his game and change the game. Like he has different paces. Russ doesn't really have that, right? You know, and that's kind of always been a knock for me as a point guard. He doesn't really control the pace of a game. He just goes 100 miles an hour, right? Which is impressive and it's dominating, yes, but he doesn't actually control the pace of the game. Where I think of a guy like Chris Paul, man, he's pulling fucking strings, and he's too smart. He's too damn smart, and Steven Adams is gonna look like Shaq against these guys. So I don't know. I think OKC should win. As far as basketball performance goes and what I know about basketball from when I was a kid, OKC should win this. But I have a very tough time going against the Houston Rockets, man. Yeah, so I think ultimately, I'm on the same path with you. I think it is almost a coin flip, but I do have OKC coming out on top. The things that are interesting to me is like the first thing is when we talk about individual matchups, right? Chris Paul excels the most when he's able to switch onto a bigger defender, and then that's where he slow cooks them, right? A little marinating, whatever you want to call it, and then he's able to do his damage and score on. With this Houston team, you don't have a guy the size of Clint Capella to do that on anymore, right? Like, I think the biggest guy he switches onto is a guy like Covington, and Covington is proven to be a solid defender, and PJ Tucker's another guy that'll get in your shorts, right? Has also been phenomenal. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, he's been great this year.
Amazing, dude.
Right. So that's where I get concerned was where you would have an advantage. Some of those advantages are taken away. Like even with Steven Adams, I'm worried that you'll have to play someone like a Gallinari more at the 5 because you'll want him to stretch the floor, right? And Houston is a team that you want to dominate the boards against, and typically teams are really good at that, but OKC is one of those teams that doesn't do well on the board. Surprisingly, like you think a dog like Steven Adams is the kind of guy that would just absolutely eat you up.
So this is kind of where I'm at, right? Like matchup-wise, I think OKC should find a way to make something work when they go with that 3-guard set, right? Now you're talking about switching and stuff like that. You're gonna get a decent match. You're gonna get an Eric Gordon or James Harden defending you. Chris Paul's gonna find a way to get an okay matchup. But that's the thing right now we're talking about is Billy Donovan gonna be able to utilize Steven Adams the best way? Because I think that every time we talk about these Rockets teams, listen, if Harden feels it one night, OKC's gonna lose, and they can't control that. That's what makes them so fucking dangerous. Right. Is that sometimes this guy's just going to dribble for half an hour up the court and he's going to score 65. And that's going to happen. It doesn't really matter. And if he has that kind of feeling and that kind of heat in this series and they're done, But if Billy Donovan can somehow get on the same wavelength with CP3, and even I would say SGA as well, because he's going to be an integral piece to this, because he's probably going to defend.
It's funny because of the 3 guards, I think Schroeder is the X factor. I think he can come here, drop his 20 points like he normally would, right, and just present a problem for those guys, right?
But speaking back to what you talked about OKC the last time, they have to find a way to be able to get to those sets they like, where they have those 3 guards on the floor, and Danilo and Steven Adams. So can Billy Donovan figure out a way to get the most out of Steven Adams? Because I think he's widely known as the strongest guy in the league, and we've spoken a ton about the physicality of the Rockets and how beat down they get. If Steven Adams can stay with his game, and if you can keep him on the court, basically, he's going to provide a physical a physical thing in the game that we're not going to be able to quantify, and that's huge, I think. Where if you play into the hands of Mike D'Antoni, man, and if Danilo Gallinari is your 5, and now you got Andre Robertson out on the court the whole time, maybe. I like this matchup as Houston, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you do get your switches and you want to score your 2s on me that takes 15 seconds off the shot clock, what do I give a shit? As long as if Steven Adams is on the court and I get to run and shoot, I think that's what Houston wants.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing will be is how Houston's offense will be able to flow with Harden off the floor, right? Because then normally you would rely on Russell Westbrook, but now, Austin Rivers, Eric Gordon, these guys kind of have to be your guys. So that's the other concerning thing for me is like you have to rest Harden at some point. It's going to be in the first half because then you're going to have to rely on him to play the entire second half. And the other thing is too, like Lou Dort is not an easy guy to play against either, right? He's a big boy that can move. So I assume he's going to make things physical for Harden. And I mean, again, it's James Harden, right? Third consecutive year that he leads the league in scores, so I'm sure he won't have a problem. But it's not going to be fun for him if he's the center, the focal point of the defense, right?
An interesting stat I saw was out of 14 years that Harden's been in the playoffs now, this is only the second time he's had another All-Star on his team.
Oh wow, that is a great stat. What was the other year? Like who was it? Oh, Chris Paul, right? Last year.
But both of them being injured at times in the year.
Right.
It was interesting, man, because I was reading that, and I've always been a Harden lover. You know this, but I was like, man, do I not give him enough respect? Because he's
when I saw him show up on the first team all bubble team, I'm like, wait, what?
And then you look at the numbers.
And then you look at the numbers, like I take this guy for granted, right? Like he still killed the bubble while it was going on, right? I just
torched
didn't know,
the bubble.
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
we do take him for granted. I think defensively too.
I think it's like a classic, almost like T-Mac. Like remember when T-Mac was back in the day, like led the league and scored continuously, get a bucket at ease, and you just like forgot about how great
my man's been averaging 30 forever, and he's been he's top 4 seed in the Western Conference the whole time LeBron's been here,
for sure.
And we don't say anything about it. It's weird.
It is very, very weird. But yeah, I'm stoked about that matchup. Like I remember I was like making all the. My calendar, my Google's calendars, and I'm like, so what games are definitely have to be a priority? And so I put every Raptors game, and then second was a no-brainer for me. It was going to be OKC Thunder, right? And it sucks because like I think it's going to be such a dogfight that whoever they play next may benefit from thrashing that they're going to give each other.
Right, and I mean now they're on the side with the Lakers, right? So I guess you would say that OKC would have the better, roster to go against them. Mm-hmm. But dude, I think Houston still causes some problems too,
That's interesting. Yeah, no, we'll have to see how it plays out. And I think we both agree that easily goes 6 or 7. Right?
I think, for sure.
That's definitely a no-brainer. Up next, I have the Jazz and Nuggets. In terms of, I think these teams are really evenly matched up, right? And I think both teams are still trying to figure out who they are because they both have, you look at the Jazz and they lose Bogdanovich, who was a huge piece of coming off the bench. So they've like experimented with their starting lineup, right? And Jordan Clarkson is now becoming more of an integral part of that offense. And then obviously with the Nuggets, we don't know when Barton and Harris are going to play, who are, huge part for that team. Jamal Murray is now just starting to get his legs under them. But then an interesting development for them is MP Michael Porter Jr., MPJ, gets on the second team bubble. He had an incredible, you could argue he could have been first.
Averaging 25 or 26.
Yeah, and people thought he was still a couple years away because he was coming off a significant injury, right? So, and then obviously the Gobert versus Jokic is just too tasty to ignore as well, right?
It's tasty, man, but I want to... the times that you watch these games, I want you to keep mental notes. I think Rudy Gobert gets too much love on defense.
Well, a lot of people and a lot of things that I've been reading is Gobert isn't the defensive, intimidating defensive presence that he was in the past, right? I think if you look at the numbers, a lot more people are going to the hole and they're not scared of him as much. So I do agree with you, and I do think Jokic ultimately ends up. I think he does eat him, because especially that like 1-footed fadeaway shot that he's added to his repertoire, like that's unguardable.
This guy's Dirk, bro.
Yeah, he is. He's Disco Dirk out there, definitely. And I think it's kind of cool with this whole development of MPJ, because it's like a new toy for Jokic to use now, right? Like you've got Jamal Murray, you know what he's able to do, but now you have this athletic wing that's gonna be running up and down the floor, and you stretch the floor for you, so you can make those stupid, sexy passes that we've become accustomed to through the course of your career. Like, I think this is a series that Jokic is going to have a lot of fun in.
It's interesting because this team is so fun. The roster's great, but it's like, you're right, it's not figured out yet. They're not lethal, but they can be. I think there will be a point that they will be able to be. But I think Paul Millsap's kind of like a hindering part on that. You see with these teams, right? We have all these young guys and good pieces, and then you look at what they did contract-wise a couple years back, and you're like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Like Paul Millsap for whatever, and then like Mason Plumlee's on a big one too, I think. Not a big one, but like a decent size. It's like, what the hell are we doing here?
Right. Yeah, it's weird, because I also think I don't like during those 8 bubble games. Like when I was gambling, I always had trouble with the Nuggets, because I don't think we saw the best version of them. I think they were just kind of coasting, because I think they wanted this matchup, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's hard to dictate how many games the Jazz ultimately win and stuff like that. But it was just so weird, because, you know, this Denver team's 16th in defense since the trade deadline, right? And I mean, yeah, 16th since the trade deadline, and then they've been 29th since, you know, given the bubble numbers as well. They give up a ton of corner threes. Utah lives off them. I mentioned Nuggets not at full strength, and you know, obviously the changes in the lineups, like Malone has a lot to figure out, you know, in that first year, and what works for them. So, you know, Jazz love getting in the line. Denver follows a lot, and we've noticed that the refs have been blowing the whistle a lot, so that obviously plays in their favor as well, right? So I'm sure that would play to their favor as well. But then Millsap hasn't been the same for the Jazz either, right? Like the prototypical all-star that we're used to.
You mean
for the Jazz? Or for the Nuggets. I'm sorry, for the Nuggets. My bad. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Used to be a Jazz. That's why I got that confused.
He never played for the Jazz.
Yeah, he played for the Jazz.
He played for Atlanta, bro.
He got drafted by the Jazz. He's the one that replaced Carlos Boozer.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
way back.
Yeah, and then he had those All-Star years, and then he got the big payday with Atlanta.
What's interesting about him is like I don't think he fits into today's game anymore. Right?
Yeah.
I think he was kind of that perfect stretch 4 back in the day, where he had that like nice post-up game and the good mid range, but now he's kind of just a floating body.
Yeah.
It's harsh to say, but it's just kind of the way it goes, you know?
Right. You almost have to give him the minutes because of how much you're paying him too, right?
That's the problem. So
the good thing for the Jazz, though, Jeremy Grant's been playing really well in that role whenever, you know, he has to come in for him as well. Then the one question I have too is like Joe Ingles has kind of been not like cool not ISO Joe, but like, you know, we've been big fans of Joe, and I just haven't heard about him in a while, right?
Yeah, this team's looked weird in the bubble, man. I don't trust the Jazz very much. I think I just read Mike Conley as well went to go see the birth of his kid today, so he's not gonna play tomorrow.
Oh,
he just flew back home, so he's out for game 1, which probably hurts as well. Listen, the Nuggets aren't dangerous, but I don't see Utah stealing any more than two games.
Yeah, I give it like
5 or 6.
6 is probably the safe number to go with that series.
But I think Jokic has a fucking field part. Like, just lights up everybody here. I think he's going to average a triple-double this series.
Yeah. No, well, again, it's just so many question marks, right? Because also, if you're relying on Jordan Clarkson to be one of your scorers, right? Like, I just don't completely trust that.
He's not Lou Williams yet.
No, not yet. You know what? I will let you pick the next series. What's the one that you're looking forward to?
I think Heat and Pacers are still fun. No?
I have them as number 3. Let's do this. Okay.
Listen, I've been a pretty big Heat fan too, I would say. And they've
become like a guilty pleasure of mine.
Right. Man, Indiana's still a little like they're not going to get walked on.
So here's the thing. I think on paper, and given the history between Warren and Jimmy, like this is a very sexy matchup. But if you look at the numbers, Indiana's offense is horrendous.
Yes.
And their offense is only good when Warren has scored 30 plus, right?
Whatever, yeah.
And if I think Butler's like frothing at the mouth at the idea of, this team is only their success hinges on Warren. Well, let me take care of that problem.
Right.
And, they're experimenting with the 3-guard lineup now with Brogdon, Holiday, and Oladipo. And Oladipo hasn't made a lot of noise, right? He's still trying to get his legs under, but we didn't even expect him to come back to the bubble. I think initially he said that he was going to take it off, but then he decided he was going to come back. And then obviously losing Sabonis. I think at full strength, this series would have been really yummy.
At full strength with a very healthy Oladipo as well. We forget that was an elite player in the NBA. Sabonis as well, again, an all-star this year, top 24 basketball player. That's something not to brush over. So of course, but I still think it'll be a fun matchup wise. I just think they're two teams that kind of mold well, that are going to give us good basketball, I think, just to watch.
I think that's the thing. We're going to get close games. We're going to get really solid basketball on both ends, right? But it could still end up being a sweep, 100%.
Sure. I think every game in the fourth quarter is a game to watch, though.
Well, and I think when you have somebody at the head like Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra, especially Jimmy Butler, like he's not going to want to give up anything. And I think he's out there to prove that we're a team to be reckoned with. And there's no better way than doing that than sweeping a team, right?
No one has gotten more stake. And I think my now favorite player in the NBA, and this is a bandwagon move, but it's Damian Lillard. More for his off-court shit, though.
Right.
More for that.
His no-nonsense mentality.
And I've said that a few times, but to add on that, my second winner now is Jimmy Butler, man. This guy doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a shit at all.
Yeah.
Did you see the quote about CP3 and how they were asking about? He's like, I don't need no friends.
I want a guy like that on my team. Just went and shoved him, but he went full like head down with his shoulder and knocked him over. Like
I love it, man.
Protect your shooters, right?
I love it, dude. Mm-hmm. And then when
it's funny that you say that though, because do you remember when he was calling all the people out in the Timberwolves practice? You're like, really? We're gonna condone this? We think this is okay? And now you're like all for it.
No, wait. I think I actually appreciated that.
No, you didn't. You said really like you said to me that has he garnered the level of respect, and has he done enough in his career to be able to?
Correct.
That was and you're totally right.
Which I still agree with
at that point.
Right.
But then we see now that the Sixers team is dismantled without him. Right. They needed alpha in Jimmy Butler to be successful. Right. That's the reason they went toe to toe with the Toronto Raptors, because he was able to hit a lot of big shots, and I'm sure a lot of guys relied on him to be the head case that he is. And then now with Miami, he's proven that he can be a leader on a team.
I think what I had more knocked on him back at that point in his career, and when he was at the Bulls and stuff, he still thought he was like a perennial scorer.
Yeah.
And I think you see with this Heat role, he's just like, nah, I'm gonna get us the bucket when we need the bucket, and I'll score when I score and such. But he's not trying to average 35.
Right.
He's not getting mad at people for taking jump shots in this Heat team. He knows he's the dog, and he's cool with whatever else. Mm-hmm. And I love that mentality, man.
I totally agree with you. Because like the one thing that we've the one thing that's really shine out for the Heat during the course of this bubble is like the Bam Duncan sort of the playing off one of each other, right? With Duncan Robinson being able to roll out and hit open threes, and then Bam obviously being able to roll out to the rim. Like they've been able to work on that, and it's been really well. And you don't necessarily need Butler in there. He could just be a spot up shooter for you, right?
They have so many fun guys on that team.
They are really a fun team.
Dragic is fun.
Yeah.
It's a good team, man.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that's interesting is Derek Jones Jr. went down scary, right? Yes. And so I don't know when he's going to be back. But he was a great rim runner for them, right? Yeah. So, but I don't think it's going to change anything for them.
More of an energy dude that would be a lot more beneficial in an arena full of people.
Right. Because he can swing momentum with his high-flying dunks, right? So, again, it's I think interesting in sense of the players involved and the type of basketball that we were going to see on paper.
Very good basketball.
Yeah, but it could be a 4 or 5 game series, as you alluded to. Yep. I have the Sixers and Celtics left, and I know you have stake in this series, obviously, as a Celtics fan. Disappointing news, obviously, no Simmons in this series. This is a chance for Embiid to prove himself, right? You surround him with 4 shooters. How much he's doing it? He's not going to do it? Okay. You don't think he's going to make barbecue chicken out of Daniel Tice?
He'll get one game. Embiid will have 45 and whatever and go off and for sure win. But I just think we're getting robbed, We're getting robbed.
What could have been.
We're getting robbed of what could have been. We're getting robbed of a team that what could be. Like right now, we're just getting robbed of it all. The whole thing's a fucking dumpster fire. Brett Brown sucks. He's got to go. It's just like You need a new coach, and you got to have a better plan with your players. Because right now they just did the whole thing where they signed everyone they could that was good, and now they just have a bunch of guys.
Yeah. For me, it's just like, Embiid, you've wanted to, you've been running your mouth, you've been, shit talking, you want to say that you're one of the best, if not the best center in the league. Like there's no more of a better opportunity now, right? If you want to put this team on your back and carry them through the series, I mean, here's your chance. Is it going to happen? Unlikely not, because, this Celtics team is very talented top to bottom. But yeah, I think this is going to be like, this could be Tatum's coming out party, right? I think, Simmons was the best guy to cover him, right? And I think
everyone doesn't understand how good of a defensive basketball player that Ben Simmons is.
Right. When it comes to the series, I was more excited for the fact that he was going to be able to lock down Tatum and, make that present a problem for him.
That's a top 5 guy you don't want to see. That's a top 5 dude you don't want to see on checking up.
Yeah.
That's a top 5 guy you just do not want to be facing across from. So I think he's going to have a field day, man. I think these guys are going to come out and light it up. I think they're going to shoot great. I think, again, Embiid's going to have his one game. Maybe he might even average 30 the whole time. That's fine. They're not going to win games when he's scoring 50 even.
Right.
They don't have the horses, dude. They don't have the horses.
No.
And
they're
missing a perennial all-star.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, how you going to fill out the rest of that scoring load, right? Yeah, Tobias Harris, I think, has to play like he did for the Clippers, right, when he was an all-star.
But I think Tobias Harris would fall right into the Boston Celtics plan of defensive matchups. Like, we can throw 5 guys at him.
Exactly.
Sure, no problem.
Well, and then there's also, like, the question of, Thybulle's kind of flourished in this bubble, right? We've seen that he's a really good defender, but the problem is he's no good on offense. So there's a liability. It's like, do you play him? Do you start him or do you start Horford? Because the high-low with Horford and Embiid's worked out really well, but
right.
Would you rather have a good, defensive start with Richardson and Thybulle and obviously Embiid in the post? And because you have to slow down Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, right?
But I'm telling you right now, man, I was talking about this on the last time you were over at the end after when we were talking.
Off the mic, yeah.
Daniel Tice, that center for the Boston Celtics, is a fucking really good basketball player. And he's going to cause problems for Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And he's all year long, like, big men have scored on Boston and they've been a problem. But when you watch the game one-on-one, he's doing a very good job. So I'm not worried in the slightest. I think it's 4 or 5.
Okay. Yeah, I could... It's so weird because like it wouldn't surprise me if we turned on our TV and we found out like Embiid's having his 40 and 20 game. Dude. Right? Is it possible? I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it going to happen? Likely no. But it wouldn't surprise me if I turned on the TV and I found out Embiid was having a field day. I don't think that happens over a course of a 6 or 7 game series though. That's the only thing.
Right. And this guy didn't want to come to the bubble.
Right.
And now he doesn't have his all-stars. You see him he's getting pissed at his teammates. Man, he's gonna play hard and stuff, but his heart's not in this.
No, absolutely. No, I think he might be mentally checked out at this point.
And if you need to take over a series, you got to be fucking locked in,
right?
Like we're seeing with Damian Lillard. And Joel's not there.
Yeah, totally. Where would you like to go next?
Clippers, Mavs.
Clippers. Wow, we're doing this in order. I love it. Let's go. Okay, let me set the stage here. So Clippers, 2nd in offense, 5th in defense. The Mavericks, 1st on offense, 16th or 18th on defense. It's weird because I think we have not seen the best version of the Clippers yet. That's the scary thing to me, right? Like when I say 2nd on offense, 5th in defense, I don't think we've seen that next gear. And we haven't even seen Harrell come back yet successfully. Like it's obvious. I think this is going to be the series for him to get his legs under him. Pat Bev has kind of been in and out of the lineup. But I'm scared because I think the Clips are just about to notch us up to another gear like we've seen, past LeBron teams, right? Like past LeBron teams kind of coast through the season, and then once the postseason's on, it's like, right, that this is the LeBron team that we're used to. And I don't know. I think it's gonna be probably one of the funnest matchups in terms of offense, right? Because I think although they're 5th in defense, the Clippers, I think there's no way of slowing down this Mavs offense. I think they're still gonna get their buckets, but it's gonna be interesting to see, the likes of Pat Bev trying to get under Luka's skin and how he handles that. KP obviously a huge standout during this bubble. I think he made the 2nd team all bubble as well. So I mean that's promising if you're a Mavs fan, but. There's guys like Hardaway Jr. who's like a liability on defense, right? So is it Paul George or Kawhi Leonard that's going to eat away at him ultimately?
If you're a Dallas Mavericks team here, I'm worried probably going in is how much you can use KP, how much he's going to be able to fit into in
this series.
It's just not good for him. You don't really want him dealing at Montrezl Harrell for 3 quarters. That's not ideal. And Man, we forget about this too, dude. The Lakers gave the Clippers Ivan Zubac.
Yeah, I know. They're kicking themselves for that, for sure.
Like, he's really good. Like, he's really good. He makes them better when he's on the court. And that's like a weird stat when you talk about this, because you're saying the one random white dude that no one knows makes this team that's full of all-stars better. Like, no, this guy's really, really good. And like now with Joakim Noah as well.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I don't know, dude.
I'm sad because against any other team in the West, the Mavs probably would have presented, it would have been more favorable for them, right? Yeah. Like if they played the Jazz or the Nuggets, we could be talking ourselves into the Mavs in the second round. Like as fun as it's going to be for us to watch, it really sucks to know that the Mavs will be in the second round of the playoffs, right?
Listen, Dwight Powell not being there really hurts for them.
Yes.
He would be a massive asset in this matchup because defensively he's perfect for that. Luka Doncic is going to get fouled a ton, and Pat Bev is going to get under his skin, and he's going to get switched onto Kawhi and Paul George off of screen. So it's going to come down to if Seth Curry, if Tim Hardaway Jr., and if Kristaps Porzingis have the series of their lives, then they could beat this team, potentially.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening in any way, shape, or form. Man, this Clipper team, I think if you say everything goes as it... If the Clippers play their best version of basketball, I don't think they get beat.
Right. And again, like I'm pretty adamant about the fact that I don't think we've seen it yet, right? Like,
and I'm not certain that we're going to.
Oh, you don't think they'll reach that by the time they get to the NBA Finals?
I don't think it's that simple. I listen. This is a team that I think should literally potentially go undefeated the whole way and win. But what I will be betting against them at multiple points because I think it's just shaky.
Well, the interesting thing for me is like if you look at the Raptors and you look at the Clippers, right? I feel like the Clippers are a lot moodier, right? When things don't go well, they could be the ones to point fingers at each other. But I think, having leaders like Kawhi and Paul George help you because they steer you in the right direction. But then you look at the roster like the Raptors, when shit hits the fan, they're just like, okay, we're going to get it next time. We're going to fix the things that we need to, right? And Van Fleet made a great point. He's like, the reason I love this team so much is you got to beat us 4 out of 7 times. And I just don't think you're doing that, right? And it's that mentality, right? Like we could come out and give the Nets 130, 140 points and they could kick our ass. Yeah. But, you still got to do it 3 more times, and I don't think you're going to do that. Whereas, like, the Clippers, I could see them potentially hitting the panic button. I think there's enough vets on that team that it won't happen, but I could see them pointing fingers and stuff like that, too.
I see Doc Rivers getting out-coached.
In this, I guess it's Rick Carlisle, right?
I see him in most matchups, man. I don't think he's that good of a coach. I'm sorry. That might be rude, and that might be against the grain. I don't think Doc Rivers is that good. I think Doc Rivers is going to cause problems for them. And I think he's the reason that Reggie Jackson is allowed to shoot 20 times a game sometimes, and Marcus Morris is allowed to take an ISO 3 instead of Kawhi or Paul George.
Well, when you think of a team that he had in the past with the utmost amount of talent that you would on a basketball roster, right? Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Chris Paul, JJ Redick, all these guys. How do you mess that up? Unfortunately, it's 2 head cases, right? But, I mean, as a head coach, that's your responsibility, right? Phil Jackson did it when he had Jordan. He had it when he had it with Kobe and Shaq, right? Like, he was able to... Like, that's where coaches of that level labor up to the next level, right?
And the point you made about Kawhi's leadership and Paul George's leadership only works because what we saw with the Raptors. Everything else around Kawhi was done correctly and done from the top down, so that when the younger guys saw Kawhi show up to work and leave, that bled to them because they didn't know what else to do and what else to see. But when you're on the Clippers roster with this, and you have Doc Rivers, and you have all these guys that have been on the league forever, that same leadership isn't as valuable.
Right.
Kawhi's not as much of a leader on this Clippers team than he was on the Raptors, because the Raptors team, he didn't need to say anything because everything else was already set. He was able to work, and then they talk about it even still. Pascal's like, like the silent work ethic kind of thing. Like, of course that bled to them because there was no reason for anything else to be happening. That the organization was so well done that there was no friction everywhere else. But with this Clippers team, it's like there's a bit of friction. Guys showed up halfway through the season still. Lou Williams went to the strip club. It's just there's like more weird pieces, and it just doesn't feel good to me.
Right.
I'm not confident in them.
Well, and then you have like oddballs like, Reggie Jackson and Morris who like to get their shots up stuff. And are they able to discipline themselves not to take stupid shots, right? And jeopardize things for this Clippers team.
If I'm a coach, okay.
It's funny because I still have them winning NBA championship and we're just pointing out every flaw for them, right? But I think this is the recipe if we don't want to see the Clippers eventually win the NBA championship.
I think the Clippers are going to win the NBA championship, but I'm going to actively bet against them every series because I think they can also fuck it up.
Right.
They're so willing and able to do that.
You should put your money where your mouth is. I know you like to gamble. All right, so the other LA team, and I think is the last one, is the Blazers, the hot Portland Trail Blazers and the Lakers. Portland just coming off an incredible run, and you've got to imagine that this might catch up to them at some point, right? They're super exhausted. Dame wins the bubble MVP. It was up for debate last week, but then I think immediately after that podcast, it was clear that he was going to win it. There's obviously concerns about CJ McCollum and his back, but last night he was able to prove that we shouldn't worry about it. But I think over a course of an NBA series, like you can't. I'm looking at you and you're like, how does this guy do with a half broken back, right?
That ball is on a string, man. CJ McCollum is one of the best ISO dudes in the NBA.
Yeah. He had two of the sickest ISOs there on John Moran at the end.
Stupid.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, so I'm gonna pump Damian Lillard's tires again, but for I love the 60-point stuff, but I also don't actually care. Mm-hmm. The shit that I love the most, and that you can knock Dame right now, and go look at the stats. He didn't take a shot in the last 5 minutes last night.
That's incredible.
If you watched it though, you would be fucking jaw dropped in awe in the realization of this perennial bubble MVP coming off of 50-point performances, seeing CJ McCollum heat up. Dude, he crossed half at 4 minutes left, I remember, and McCollum just hit a shot. And he just waved everyone into the corner.
CJ waved everybody out.
No, Dame did.
Dame did.
Dame was like, yo, everyone get the fuck out of here. I'm giving it to CJ. We're going to go back on defense.
Oh, nice.
And this is 4 minutes left in the fourth. Like, this is a time where you're supposed to go take the shot. He's like, no. My guy's hot. Let's go. He's getting doubled all the time. Dame was so smart in that last 4 minutes for not taking a shot.
Right.
That I think he should get so much more praise. Like this, he took every possession. Every time he touched the ball, they're looking to double, looking to flip. He used it to get CJ open shots and Melo open shots late. They won the game. Dude, that is...
And I think there's more value than the fact that they were able to come out on top. I think you empower your teammate, right? Everyone's talking this shit about, CJ, if CJ's not the same. Like, you don't want him to feel like the guilty party if the Trailblazers aren't able to live up to their expectations that they've now built. But it's like that the confidence is such a big thing, right? You're reeling off that and you're saying, okay, my back feels like shit, but I know I can also perform at a high level, right?
The confidence from us, man, you've been saying that, but imagine being in that locker room. Now CJ's over there. He's like, okay, Dame's coming off 60, and he's hucking me the rock here with 3 minutes left in a game where we have to win. And he's like, this isn't, we're equals,
right?
I
totally agree with you,
dude. Best leader in sports right now.
I'd say so.
The best leader in sports.
So CJ McCollum, 29 points, 14th in that fourth quarter, right? 17 for 29, 2 filthy step backs, as I'd mentioned, and again, doing this with some sort of broken bone in his back that he suffered early in the bubble games, right?
Vertebrae crack, dude.
Vertebrae crack. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not gonna downplay it, but I believe it's not that bad. It's pain, but I don't think it's...
There's not a needle for that?
Come on now, man. We had needles.
A lot of rolling eyes right there.
We had needles for that. He's fine. I think he'll be all right.
Yeah,
but
totally.
It's still a gutsy performance, and Melo hitting that shot late too, man. This guy is
Melo
up in the important times.
Melo's 6 threes in the clutch in the bubble, most by any player in the bubble at this time, and he's 54.6 3-point percentage on clutch attempts, and he had a big one against the Nets that were they really needed in that final minute.
Just to clarify, a clutch attempt is a game within 5 points with 5 minutes remaining. So that's
news to me. So I appreciate you dropping that.
Yeah. So everyone says in the clutch. What does that mean? 5 minutes left. The game's within 5.
Right.
So that's pretty important shit. Like and he's shooting 54%.
50. Yeah. I mean, close to 55. Right. Whew. That's wild.
17 years in.
17 years in, a guy that couldn't find an NBA roster, a guy that, during the course of the game, all he does is rebound, right, for this Portland team, right, because they are short with Collins and Nurkic. But then, yeah, when push comes to shove, right, he has got an opportunity to make a big shot, just sits in the corner waiting for Dame and CJ to create some space for him.
100%.
It's unbelievable.
Man, I think in this Lakers matchup, Melo is my X factor for the Trailblazers. I think if you're the Lakers... It's obvious to see that defensively Melo's working hard, but he's just not. He can't move. The movement's not there. He's 17 years in, and I get that. So if you're the Lakers, that has to be. I mean, if LeBron always wants those good switches matchups. He's going 1-on-1 against Melo every time he's on the court. If Melo can fucking go off here and really give us whatever he had back in the day in Denver and put a ton on the defensive end and shoot those shots like he has been, then that can be a huge turning point in this series for them. But ultimately, I think it actually just holds in the hands of Anthony Davis.
Yeah. So before we get to that, because I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had with the Lakers side, but I do also want to acknowledge the fact that Nurkic, unfortunately, and I'm sure we can both talk about the mental hurdle that presents itself. Nurkic loses his grandmother that morning to COVID, right? And obviously playing with a super heavy heart, decides to play that game, goes 21 and 21, so points and rebounds, 6 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. So I mean, shout out to him, huge credit. I remember I can my own experience, right? It was only a men's league game, right? But it's the one thing that I looked forward to through the course of the week. I play with guys that I obviously love to play with, and I lost my grandma the day before, right? And the guys are just like, you shouldn't play, it's just a game. But for me, it was just a good outlet to get to the game. Course, yeah. And it's just it's weird because when you're playing in a game and you've had something like that to happen, you're so consumed in the basketball game, but when you have that pocket or window to think about something else, you think about obviously something that as tragic as that happened. So for him to play in a not a must-win game, because they would have had another chance today.
Technically not, but
no,
also
but
kinda.
Some people were telling me, they're like, you got to take Memphis, right? Because Portland will definitely want to do it on the second game. They won't come out as swinging. I'm like, if I'm Portland, I want to win this game and have 2 days off consecutively instead of playing these 2 hard games and then having one. And so that's what I told Tyler. I'm like, okay, no, Portland's going to come out swinging this game, and they're going to go for the win, right? I agree. But to Nurkic's credit, obviously playing with a heavy heart and really showed out last night.
Man, I think someone who's, if healthy all year long, we have to get a real look at that.
It's a big what if.
We got to get a real look at that. I think he could be a real all-star, man. I was super impressed yesterday.
I think everyone is surprised the way he's turned out.
Defensively, he's good. He's pretty smart with the ball in his hands. There's a couple of plays where they'll run him on top of the key, and he'll kind of make a few nice passes, and he's very good. Mm-hmm. He's got a bit of everything too. He's a very versatile player. Totally. And hits the three exceptionally confidently. Mm-hmm.
For his size.
There was 3 or 4 times where he was left open, and then shot was up, guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And then when he was covering, he was like, "No, it's not me." It's just smart guy.
For sure. So you did bring up AD and the Lakers. Obviously, this is kind of a nightmare matchup for them. Some people are coming out and saying this is going to be deep series. Some people are saying, okay, again, this is a LeBron-led team where we still haven't seen the best version of them. It's interesting. This Lakers team is interesting in the sense that, LeBron didn't look as sharp as he normally does in these 8 games, right? But he was a strong candidate to win MVP against Giannis. Rondo could be coming back, and you and me love playoff Rondo more than we love any playoff version of any player. So that'll be interesting. And I think they really do need him because guards eat up against this Lakers team, right? If you look at every series, all the guards have been able to go off against them. And my last question too is can AD be the dog that the Lakers need him to be in this entire run? I don't even think just for this series. He obviously, will be a big factor in this series, but is he willing to take the keys away from LeBron and say, hey, just trust me to do everything?
That's exactly it. I think that's the question. If Anthony Davis talks to LeBron tomorrow and he's like, all right, hey man, you're in year 17, I'm going to take one here, let's go. I want to get 40 every night and I'm going to get aggressive. Then that's the recipe that gets in the ship. Yeah. I do believe that, but I don't think it's LeBron, man. I know that sounds crazy. LeBron is at the point now in his career where we understand LeBron is going to create a completely positive impact in the entire game of basketball for the Lakers at all times. I know that. I'm very aware.
And he'll always be the smartest player on the court.
Always be the smartest player on the court. But he's not that dude at Cleveland where you walked into a game 7 and you're like, what's the betting line? I know LeBron is scoring 55 at minimum with at least 15 rebounds, with at least 10 assists. Right. That's not him anymore. He's just going to win the game now. But Anthony Davis can be that guy. Yeah. And you're talking about the one thing against the Lakers is how you're going to stop Anthony Davis, because like I said, we talk about this all the time, these perennial guys, these superstars, these superstar level dudes, but don't really have a position, because Anthony Davis can do everything at 7 feet, causes the most issues, man. It just causes the most problems. Because what are you going to do if you're Portland? Do you put Zach Collins on him? No. God, no. He's an awful defensive player. Are you going to put Nurkic on him? No, because Anthony Davis has the way better footwork and the space, and if he has to go play up on him at the 3, he's going to get beat, and he has to play up on the 3 because Anthony Davis will be able to hit the 3. Who is going to guard him?
Right. There's no, and then the question is like you need to rest Nurkic and Zach Collins at some point, right? And your biggest guy at that point is what, Melo, and that's obviously not going to happen, right?
If Frank Vogel's a good coach, the Lakers can fucking do what they want, man.
So here's the thing: you could talk me into a sweep for this series because Portland's defense is so bad. As much as we want to talk about how clutch they are and how great they are offensively, their defense is horrendous. Yes. But you could easily talk me into a 7-game series as well, right?
I think it goes at least 6.
Yeah.
And I listen, I agree with you. I think Portland's defense is really bad, but I also think we give the Lakers defense too much credit for what they were producing earlier. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're very good defensively either.
This is a team that used the most different lineups in the bubble. Like they experimented with the most different amount of lineups because they didn't know which one was the best version, right?
Well, I think what we're going to see, and this is a smaller X factor for the Lakers team, but we're going to get your boy Alex Caruso, I think, a ton.
My boy.
Well, everyone fucking loves this guy. He's
you just assumed, right?
But I think he's the only guy that can defend guard-wise.
That's scary.
It's terrifying,
said that, right? No? That's why they're going to miss the hell out of Avery Bradley.
So this is why when you say Portland's this bad on defense, I agree. But I'm not actually like panic button on that in this series because I don't think the Lakers will be that good on defense. And then on top of that, I think they're the worst defending guard team where all their points on the Portland will be coming from. So I think that is kind of going to figure itself out a little more than we want to believe. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, dude, if Anthony Davis wakes up pissed tomorrow, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't... See, this is the thing, too. I don't necessarily think he's that guy. And I don't think he came over to the Lakers wanting to take the spot from LeBron. Mm-hmm. I don't think he And there was a soundbite that came out about D-Wade and LeBron way back on... Maybe it was their first year together or second year together. And D-Wade pulled LeBron over. Like, it was like... They were having like maybe a dip in the season. And he was like, listen, dude, this is your team. Like, you're better than me.
I remember that.
And he's like, this is how it has to go. You're 1, I'm 2. Like, now we know this. Let's go. That talk needs to happen again.
Yeah.
LeBron needs to pull Anthony Davis over and be like, dude, you're the best player in the NBA. You have to own that. You have to believe that shit. I'm here for you, but let's go.
Right. It's funny because you said you thought Melo was the X factor, and as odd as it sounds, like I think LeBron is the X factor in this, right? Depending on his approach to the game and how much of a seat he takes back, or if we see the MVP version of LeBron that we saw through the course of the year, right? And maybe that's the reason why AD's so hesitant because he's like, my teammate was second in the running for MVP, right? Yeah. Like we were a couple of games away from maybe him being the MVP, given the fact that Giannis was going to miss a few games, right? So that's why I think he's the X factor. It's like what version of LeBron are we going to get for this series, right? Does he even have the capability of not having that takeover gene because he's been so used to it in the postseason, right? And the success of LeBron's teams have been predicated on how he has taken over the course of the game. But like, does LeBron still have that? But and it sounds so stupid because we get proven wrong every year that we think that the version of LeBron is done, but he's still there.
But let me hit you with the math. Okay?
I'm not good at math, so let's do this.
I think Ron should be on triple-double watch every game for the rest here on out. I think that's he could easily average a triple-double the rest of the way. Let's be generous. Let's say he averages 30, 10, and 10. Or 30, 15, and 10. Mm-hmm. And then Anthony Davis has to, average 40, let's say. It's only 70 points, man.
Where's the rest coming from?
Portland is scoring 130. 120. Mm-hmm. We're putting points up.
It's a track meet, right?
We're putting points up.
And that's the thing. We're probably gonna see less of the Dwight Howards and the JaVale McGee's in this series because, like you said, right, these guys are gonna just continue to run on these guys.
Or Portland, hopefully more, so they can play Collins and Nurkic at the same time.
Yeah.
But man, because sometimes right now they have it where they put Nurkic in. So this is where Anthony Davis, again, if you're Vogel, you just get what you want, man. Because if you actually be smart enough and play to their hand in quotations by putting out Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis, now Zach Collins on the court. Now you get Anthony Davis with Zach Collins, and he's already going to beat everybody, and now he's going to beat him every single time, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Or you make him go into a big set where Anthony Davis is playing center, and now Portland has to match this. Now Mel's at the 4, so you can get him on Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
There's just ways to manipulate.
It's just a chess match,
AD.
right?
Exactly. But man, I'm telling you, these guys are going to score. Portland's going to score.
Definitely.
So the Lakers got to score more than just these two dudes. LeBron's not gonna. They can't both average 50. So, where's it gonna come from? Alex Caruso's not scoring 20 on the night.
And this is such like a feel out series. Like, where I think we're gonna learn a lot in those first couple of games, right? Like of of what each team has to do to be successful, right? Because the other part we talked about this right at the beginning of the conversation, but it's like there is that exhaustion. As much as they've been battle tested every
Yes.
game, every game has been a game 7, right? So they're not afraid to be in sort of that clutch moments. There is a point where it gets exhausting for you, right?
But I think you made the point earlier, and I think if they play again today, I'm worried about that. But the fact that they're not, they got 2 days off now. And that's
which is a luxury to them.
Dude, it's
at this
perfect
point, right?
timing.
Yeah.
You have 2 days is a lot to recover as well.
And like the elimination of travel and all that sort of stuff obviously really helps them as well, right? And again, the Lakers really haven't played a meaningful game since that first or second where they clinched the best record in the league.
Also,
right?
when you look at leaders right now, and like as far as
best record in the West, I'm sorry.
but like leadership on teams, LeBron hasn't looked good in the bubble as far as like a persona.
That's what I think too, right?
He hasn't felt
well. He's put out those like those cryptic messages, right? Like there's stuff that we can't talk about. That's
the fuck is
concerning.
this?
Like, why are you doing this?
Bugs
Right?
me, man.
It does. It is concerning to say the least. It just makes. Yeah, I don't want to get into it because it's like an alibi.
So who do you think?
Who
Who do you think wins?
I think the Lakers ultimately win.
Will
I be putting money on the Blazers? Hell yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm money down on Blazers, but man, if AD wants it, they got it.
They absolutely do. Awesome. Well, first game is I was just checking the schedule. I think it's 1:30 tomorrow. Jazz and Nuggets. So that's a great way to open up.
Jazz and Nuggets. Nice.
Jazz and Nuggets. That's at 1:30. And then Raptors are 4. So I'm glad we're not podcasting tomorrow because I definitely want to be slapped on the couch and be a vegetable for the most part of the day. So we'll come back next week. Might have to maybe we keep doing this on a Sunday. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the schedule. I think it'll all depend on schedule.
Yeah.
I think we'll always revolve it around the Raptors, right? If the Raptors are going to play the next day or they play Tuesday, then we can record Monday. But we'll always make that a priority here on the podcast, and then we'll talk Celtics after.
Should we make some early picks here, or what are we thinking?
So like,
let's pick the next round.
Let's pick the next round.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jazz Nuggets.
Nuggets.
Okay, we agree there. Raptors Nets.
Raptors.
Celtics Sixers.
Celtics.
Sixers. No, I'm kidding. Celtics. Mavericks Clippers.
Clippers.
Magic Bucks. Heat Pacers.
Yeah, Heat.
Agree. Thunder Rockets. Are we split on that one?
I'm gonna go Rockets.
Okay, I'll go Thunder.
Yeah.
And then Trailblazers Lakers.
I'm gonna go Trailblazers.
Ooh, okay, you heard it here first, and I'll go Lakers. Although I will be so happy if the Trailblazers win.
I'm gonna go Trailblazers, man.
I'll be so happy if the Trailblazers win. Yeah, I think the two that I really would love to see upset is the Maverick Clippers, and obviously the OKC Rockets, but they're too close that I don't really like because they're the 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't really count. But the Maverick Clippers, I mean, if both LA teams got knocked out, I would be ecstatic.
I think we should be doing our due diligence here and looking at that line from Mavericks Clippers. That one's a fun matchup. That could be fun, or if the Clippers want to designate.
When it comes to gambling, I succumb to peer pressure. So you just tell me, you just give me the green light, and I'll do it. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Again, a random day, but hopefully it works out to your favor, and you're able to cram this in right before. And I don't know, maybe we get to a point where we do two a week. Maybe when we get as we get closer, right? I mean, we got
100%.
nothing better to do, so
we have our own studio now.
we do have a studio. The ambience is nice here. I'm missing the candles though. Where are the candles, James? All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. As always, SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. You can find us on all the channels, and enjoy the week. I'm super stoked. Get your popcorn ready. Thanks for joining us, guys. James, thanks for being here.
Thank you.